Hello and welcome. Welcome to Cutting Edge, the show at the very intersection of technology, geopolitics, and strategy. Today we have with us John Spencer, soldier, author, thought leader, chair of urban warfare studies, Modern War Institute, West Point. Welcome, John. It's a pleasure to be with you today.
Well, it's a pleasure to be with you. Thank you for having me.
And let me start straight away. You've been in India and you've interacted with the hierarchy insofar as the military is concerned, the diplomatic corps is concerned, various other thought leaders in India. And you've been studying Op Sindoor very closely, very, very closely. And one has been reading you and, one has read your books on urban warfare. So, what I intend asking you is a couple of questions today and tickle your mind and possibly get a little view as to how you view the entire thing.
All right.
So let me start straight away and asking you firstly, did India win against Pakistan in Op Sindoor? It's as simple as that. And if yes, how and how exactly do you say and qualify such a thing?
Sure. So I say undeniably, yes, India achieved a strategic victory. And that,
Wonderful.
and before I kind of started to focus on urban warfare, I taught strategy at West Point and really helping people understand what does winning look like. It's hard. Both of us as military men understand that it's pursuit of political goals. India set the political goals in the beginning, which was to deter terrorism with the strike of the 9 sites and the opening of Operation Sindoor, but also a change in strategic doctrine, which was accomplished during the operation. The political apparatus sent with Prime Minister Modi, a clear message on, this isn't the old India with, pursuing diplomatic means first in response to cross-border terrorism attacks or nuclear, basically cowering to the reckless nuclear saber rattling that Pakistan does. So at that strategic level, immediately strategic objectives clearly achieved based on how the 4 days unfolded, but also demonstrating India's work on strategic dominance. So I measure effectiveness of the military. So, we do have what's called relative combat power, as you know, and who achieved dominance. Not to say there is no such thing as a bloodless war or without losses, but who is able to achieve their goals and impose their will on their enemy, going back as far as Clausewitz. India from the beginning was able to hit the 9 sites and then was able to defend against Pakistan's counterattack with the drones and missiles almost very effectively by any measurement. And then India was able to then control the escalation ladder, strike over 11 very important military sites in Pakistan, which demonstrated the ability to hit what they wanted when they wanted. So just from every measure of military, and of course I measure what Pakistan's response was, and there was a very unique display of beyond visual range air combat that happened. That is an important part of the story of these 4 days. But from an objective military analysis, I don't see how anybody could say any differently that India didn't achieve a strategic victory across the spectrums of warfare, from the strategic, operational, and tactical.
Wonderful. So that's established now, soldier to soldier. Actually we are not only theorists, I think we've been the practitioners and, proponents of warfare where we've done things on ground. And it's very heartening to know that you say, that we achieved the strategic, the diplomatic, and the operational as well as the tactical victory insofar as this is concerned. No, but now you see, John, my question to you is that this is the first time we have seen two nuclear armed neighbors into a conflict, which has happened for 4 days, which was rather intense. And this is the first time the subcontinent has seen beyond visual range missiles being fired. It has seen the air forces in action. It has seen precision weapons, etc., etc. Do you think this changes the warfare pattern and paradigm in the subcontinent for the times to come, or it's going to remain generally the same with a little tweak here and there?
I absolutely, I mean, there's many aspects from the weapons displays to the strategic doctrine that absolutely there's a change. I am a kind of a person of, there are a few revolutions in military affairs and there are multiple evolutions. But for,
Hmm.
South Asia, I mean, clearly India, and this is part of my study, was what was India doing prior to Operation Sindoor in the defense reforms, the Make in India, from the BrahMos to the Akash to, I mean, so many different evolutions of military capabilities, but also then seamlessly integrate them in a joint capability. So I think the biggest thing that is different here, so the massive change and is the strategic doctrine of India, from the political to the military, the demonstration of military capability, I think unrivaled in even India's past history. What India was able to do into Pakistan, the range right outside of the line of control, the ability to strike, you know, very close to Rawalpindi. I mean, you name it. Some capabilities that definitely set a signal in the region, but I hopefully globally, as in India is a leader in certain technologies, and that's been a part of the study too. Is the goals that India has in even the military space with the laser technology. For me, as somebody who studies war around the world, and from Ukraine to Israel to wherever, to have really artificial intelligence, drone, AI, data, those are things that are the future of warfare for sure.
Wonderful. So, if you recall, sometime, you know, uh, post Op Sindoor, the Prime Minister here in India, Prime Minister Modi, has brought out very clear three red lines. It says very clearly, no nuclear blackmail. Any act of terror will be viewed as an act of war. And he also said there is no distinction between state and non-state actors. Now, these are very profound statements by the Prime Minister of India. Now, having said that, do you think the era of, that famous plausible deniability that Pakistan has generally been touting for a very long time is over? And also, do you think that all this is going to alter the entire algebra insofar as warfare is concerned here?
So that's a complex one. I definitely think you're right. That distinction, which we've heard before, which is we will not distinguish between those that the terrorists and those that harbor them, right? And if you have
Absolutely.
terrorist bases on your ground and people for decades, you play this double game where you say you're working against it, and then there's more terrorist groups. TRF is a rather new offspring of Lashkar-e-Taiba, which is a Pakistan ISI, according to the United States, designated terrorist group, both LET and now TRF. The change of warfare, of course, I think people have forgotten what strength looks like, and this is what I saw in the Prime Minister's those three red lines was a demonstration of strength and deterrence, right? Deterrence is what keeps the peace in the history of war studies, basically. And what is real deterrence is both having the credibility, as in the capability to do something, and the will to do it. So you have to have these political strength as well as your military. And I know even in India, at times that has not been aligned, where you have a military strength, but for many political reasons, not to use it. Now, for Pakistan's, of course, the world has changed in many ways, and this isn't the same world we live in. Post so many elements of the United States has changed, India has changed, the Middle East has changed. I think there should be a global coalition against terrorism and the states that sponsor them. And that should be India is doing what it has to do and that was a demonstration of strategic independence as well during Operation Sindoor. India is going to do what it's necessary for its national interests. And this threat, and I walked the ground of the 2008 Mumbai attacks. This is clearly not the same India as 2008. But, we live in a geopolitically connected environment. For Pakistan to truly change its behavior in that evolution of proxy warfare that you're talking about, right? This deployment, that plausible
Yeah.
deniability, although in this case that's pretty weak. That takes more than one nation. It takes a very large effort from many nations, and that's complex. But we're seeing a different world we're living in.
True. So, let me segue you back to, a couple of decades. We've seen, that famous low cost option, which, Pakistan has employed starting from the 1993 Mumbai blasts to 1999 Parliament attack. And then you saw both the nations coming back on the brink of war sometime around, 2001. That is the time generally you again had a problem when the parliament attack happened. So it's a pattern. So it's Bombay blast, then it's Kargil, then it's parliament attack, then it is train bombings, then it is 26/11 in Mumbai, etc., etc. So this possibly, I have a feeling that it emboldened the Pakistan army, the military there, and the civil society, that look, this is a great low cost option. But now, after Sindoor, when they've been hit quite badly, and they're still reeling under all that pressure. Do you think this low cost option is likely to undergo a change now, or it's going to be the same business as usual?
No, I don't think business as usual is at all. I mean, war is the active force or the use of force to compel your enemy to do your will. And the
Right.
dominance that India has displayed in Operation Sindoor definitely changed the cost evaluation, right? So that, like you said, that low cost of sending an oftentimes impoverished um, terrorists that have been radicalized to do attacks without plausible deniability, that was low cost, like you said. Clearly, Operation Sindoor showed that, and that's what the progression of the 4 days was. That escalation dominance is that there will be immediate heavy cost, and that's that level of deterrence that hasn't been there, as far as I know, in a very long time. That has been
Yeah,
established. So the cost evaluation absolutely changed.
absolutely. So essentially, the entire matrix is now going to be undergoing a change. Now, we also saw a large number of Chinese, hardware and equipment being utilized by the Pakistani armed forces in the famous 4 days war, if I may call it. The efficacy of the same was pretty bad. And I mean, I think you've also opined that, the Indian Air Force even got down a JF-17 as well as an AVAX all the way, deep inside the Pakistani territory. So, do you think now the entire matrix, insofar as this part of the world is concerned, will have a little change insofar as stocking, insofar as procurement, insofar as various other Chinese weapon systems are concerned by the Pakistan army, or are there going to be new options which are going to be basically thrown out?
I mean, you would think, and I think that Pakistan's military will definitely be pursuing different options than because all of their systems, both defensively and offensively, failed to do what they were purchased to be able to do. That includes individual systems, depending on what you're talking about but it also includes the ability to integrate them together, right? That's the PhD level that we talk about is it isn't the
Hmm.
stuff. You do have to have the world's leading tech, but it's how you integrate them. You could have nice stuff and you can't integrate it. The radar doesn't talk to the missile or whatever it is, then
Yeah,
it's not going to perform. But I mean, China definitely uses Pakistan, in my opinion, as a testing bed for its equipment. And China learned a lot during Operation Sindoor. Pakistan, you would hope, would have learned a lot, or you not hope that they didn't. But they have economic concerns, right? So militaries are reflections. I mean, what you invest in your defense is based on your economy as well. And that's been a part of my study too. Pakistan's not in a good economic position to be buying higher end systems, and that it buys the cheaper Chinese knockoffs, which are usually knockoffs of either American products or other products. So who knows what the version they're selling, or is the knockoff just really that bad?
wonderful. So I will always remember this, John. Cheaper Chinese knockoffs. That's a great line. Cheaper Chinese knockoffs. Right. So, on another note, we also see the United States now looking at this entire area and also giving a couple of statements here and there. Do you feel diplomatically the United States is trying to generally wean out Pakistan from the influence of China and Iran in some manner or the other? Or you feel that it's it is what it is.
I mean, I think it's changing. I think it's complex. I mean, the relationship
Okay.
is old for many reasons, like you said. Just you look at the borders of Pakistan; it has been a launching pad in insurance, and during the global war on terrorism, the comments that were made and the agreements that were made. It's very complex, but you can see in many ways, despite the lunch with the general and things like that that people talk about, that the relationship is changing, and the statements are very strong, and the U.S. administration is very strong against terrorism. And that's why I really welcomed, and some people think it's not very effective, but the designation of TRF as a global terrorist and organization, and comments towards that, but also the bringing India and the United States closer together. We're seeing defense agreements, we're seeing economic agreements, and I think those are all great because India clearly demonstrated that they're the nation in the lead in the region, for not just in democracy, of course, but in values and in tech development, AI, all those things that are very promising, and hopefully those will get farther down the road to actually be in agreements.
Oh yes, of course. In fact, there's some very path-breaking, initiatives insofar as the Quad is concerned. Whether it is the ISET that we are talking about, whether it is Indus X that we're talking about, insofar as the defense,
Yep.
collaborations are concerned and startup collaborations are concerned in times to come. But I really hope that it fructifies to a level where there's a huge amount of leverage both countries can take out of these two great technological issues insofar as warfare is concerned. But tell me,
I just saw that
in,
India got an Apache, and somebody who's been supported by Apaches, you couldn't have a
of
better
course,
aircraft to be supporting the troops than an Apache for sure.
yeah, they just got inducted on the 22nd, and they're going to be right now looking at the Western Theater. There are three more coming in. So that will be looking somewhere else. But I think it's going to be a big booster, especially with the Indian two other variants also coming in. We have the Prachand coming in, and we have the other, the Rudra coming in. That's the LH Rudra. Both of them are armed hectors. So along with that, I think it's going to be a great combination insofar as what the in the earlier times the United States Army used to call the air cavalry.
That's
So
right.
that's going to be, I think, again back into action insofar as the Western theater is concerned. Right now, do you really think that this situation, as to what it was, between the 7th and the 10th, and the run up to it from the 22nd of April, uh, could it have spiraled out of control in some manner or the other?
Absolutely.
Uh,
Yeah. I mean,
right, right.
you understand the history of war, and there's always an underlying reason, then there's a triggering moment, and then there's all the uncertainty, as you and I know. And this is where it gets hard for people to explain. And people ask you during the war, how's this going to go? Like, it's human, it's political, and it's uncertain. Never changes. That's always going to be. So there was definitely a lot of uncertainty, that could have been misread. And this was the interesting part about the information that was being released. The narrative war, and versus what the international media collect. I was surprised by the amount of communication that India was producing. The all of uh, the commanders, the DGMO, and other, all there saying this is what we hit. Here's the imagery of it, both satellite, video. This is why we did it. Then you had the political, you had the Minister of External Affairs, daily, that level of communication, which is in part showing the clarity between the political military, but also ensuring and hoping that it doesn't spiral. The enemy always gets a vote, and clearly after the initial, the 9 rounds and immediate, like, we have taken action in response to a terrorist attack, and the immediate message was that's it, and that the enemy always gets a vote, but absolutely this could have gone a lot. There could have been a spiral had not there been one clarity, of the messaging, and lots of things were involved clearly.
Right. So, we've all operated on ground in our life, and we exactly know how it works when you have a lot of things which are not going your way. But what I intend asking you, John, is do you really think that today swords can be changed or possibly, looked at by hashtags more than anything else? Do you really think that swords can be replaced by hashtags? That is one, because there's a huge amount of, narrative warfare which moves around in any kind of conflict. And how do you rate India's narrative warfare vis-a-vis the other adversaries?
That's a good question. We call it information operations, of course, has always been there. From I mean, the reason we run a marathon is there's a guy who was running back to explain what happened in the war. Of course, now it's ubiquitous. Now it's driven by social media algorithms, and it can lose wars. I mean, you can win every battle, but you can lose the war if people believe you lost the war. Even that's where this is what we saw happening. I think there is some lessons here for India about, they were producing information, and that's like an example that I'll write as a case study. Like this is, you can't not communicate. You have to communicate, but you also have to track what is the narrative. And there was a narrative that was growing, this ideal of how many planes had been shot down, and that's all that matters. Like, the trees
Absolutely.
through the woods. I think that's a lesson on you should have fought that narrative a little stronger um,
Yeah,
in the process. On the other side, for the Pakistani side, who didn't put out information as much, but also didn't come with legitimacy in that information, which is a lesson for militaries around the world. If you're going to put out information, then it needs to be credited, or the social media realm will just eat it alive, right? If you say you hit all these places, but there's not a single military or civilian at this point, because we have civilian satellite imagery of that, then it's going to be hard for people to believe that. Maybe your population will believe it, but we live in a global connected economy or world now.
oh yeah. So essentially, the narrative warfare, the narrative warfare and narrative management systems have to augment the battlefield management system, so to say.
Absolutely. And I think in my interviews of senior Indian commanders, they're of course tracking, even if it's not their world, what are those narratives? And I've seen it in other places in the world as well. Making sure when they brief information, they cover like, here's all this information to maybe not even address the false claim, but
Absolutely.
speaking clarity of here's what happened. Even if it's, there is this idea of how much information gets out, because you and I know about operational security. There are lessons you keep for yourself, but even in this strategic narrative, basically ideal of or narrative warfare, you have to communicate and you have to address some things. You don't have to address everything, and there's a way to do it even if you're not addressing it by just putting out the information as much as you can frequently.
Wonderful. So correspondingly, let me ask you, there's a lot of report which is roaming around in various kinds of media, which looks at this five jet theory that, this happened and that happened. You believe it?
No, no, of course not.
All right. Thank
Do
you.
I
That's
believe that
that's
there was
exactly.
a jet? Sure. Do I believe there are five jets? No. Do I believe that no matter either one of those propositions would mean take from India's dominance militarily? Not at all. This is
Mhm.
this the pro. What's interesting isn't even if it was five jets, although clearly it wasn't, or there would be a lot more proof of that.
Yeah,
How did that become the Western story when objective analysis of what India was hitting at will uh, inside of Pakistan and the dominance that they showed and the minute by minute kind of calls between the two, how did that become the story? Is a lesson. Like that was a narrative. And I've talked to people who don't know nothing about the war, and that's the only thing they know. Oh, you mean when Pakistan knocked down all those planes? Like that's interesting as a just as an anecdote. Like that's what you all you know from the war.
oh, wonderful. So it's good to know, because there's a lot of this fight jet theory which keeps coming up and around, and which is it's just a pack of nonsense. Actually, I don't know why people are fabricating these kind of stories. So in the end, let me just ask you a very simple and a very important question. How do you think you're a scholar, you're a veteran, you're an author? you look at urban warfare, and you would be reading and possibly writing more on this subject in times to come. Do you think this, these 4 days between the 7th and 10th of May bring out some kind of a lesson to the world in warfare? And if yes, what all?
Oh, I mean, there's many. That's the reason why I was so focused on it. One, we were living in this nuclear boogeyman, the nuclear shadow, although of course, it's very a dangerous situation, but the idea that you
Absolutely.
can't respond because of that threat, we've seen it in other places very recently, and that's a lesson about how to do constrained, limited, but also purposeful strength and through military operations. The use of force underneath the nuclear umbrella to send this clear message is a lesson. I think there's some giant lessons here in India's defense reforms, how it has unleashed the innovation in the private sector. And I studied that a little bit while I was in India recently. I wrote a little bit about that, but learned a lot more about how that's actually being implemented and executed, even in having the military leaders communicate to the civilian, institutions or the challenges and say these are the challenges that we face on the battlefield. Of course, you can't rest on your success. So I think there's a lot of lessons here too, in that that beyond visual range, but also in the integrated air defense that the India demonstrated. And just to be some surprise, I even talked to Indians who's like, oh, I didn't know we could do that. They were surprised, but also understanding that how much planning had gone into that, how you had to integrate legacy systems with advanced systems, and that's not easy to do. There's a ton of lessons that I'm trying to pick out the top ones, but I start at the top with that political clarity in the goals of the war, and I think as I study so many wars around the world, people forget how important that part is. Like, what is the goal? Because even those who wanted this operation to go longer for some reason, to hit harder, understanding in the lesson here is that how important those political goals, limited, clear, frequently communicated, were for the war. And once you achieve them, then you've achieved that goal. There's that aspect is very important.
So, to end, let me ask you one last question, John. With your sagacity and your intrigue and your, understanding of the subject a little more than the others, do you think it is over, or it's just a restocking, or an impasse, or it's just a small little pause and it'll happen again? I'm not expecting you to be a soothsayer or a mandarin or a crystal gazer, but as a soldier.
So, as a soldier, I say that the status quo is done. So in that part,
Okay.
there's something that's over, which is the status quo that was there for a very long time, and you would know longer than I how long that's been going on. The status quo of between the two, the attack, the response. I think that's over. Um, According to India, Operation Sindoor is not over. As you know, because they're at this point of readiness, and you would hope, and I think, and that's something I learned as well. This is India has very big goals in taking India in development and in so many different categories. So it, of course, doesn't want more violence. Now, do I believe that Pakistan has given up on its proxy warfare of deploying terrorists into India and finding ways to attack? No, personally, as a soldier, but I do believe that we can say this marks the end of the status quo that was existing for a while, and this is a new environment. Now you see where it goes.
Wonderful. Thank you, John. Thank you very much. I think we are sticking to our timing, and what a pleasure speaking with you. What a pleasure, and great to know your views on so many things insofar as the Indian subcontinent is concerned. And I'm sure there are some good things in store for the subcontinent and for all of us. I look forward to hosting you here in person when you're back in Delhi, and we'll catch up very soon. And thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
All right.